Hey guys, it's Neon. We're going to talk about It Chapter 2. I saw it the other day, and I didn't get to record a reaction or review yet because we've been busy with other videos and other things going on, so I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk about It Chapter 2, my thoughts on the movie, being a big fan of the first It, and also talk about some of the reactions to It Chapter 2, some of the changes that were made, some of the problems the media has with the portrayal of events in the book. You probably know what I'm talking about. And yeah, we're going to go there. So please subscribe to Clownfish TV for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Subbing definitely helps the channel. The YouTube algorithm has changed. If you want to see more content from us, give us a sub, please. It doesn't cost you anything. And we're at 59,000. I think we're almost to 60,000, hoping for 100,000 by the end of the year. Don't know if it's possible, but your support in any way is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. So It Chapter 2 did not have the quite the reviews that the first It movie had. Looking at Rotten Tomatoes, 63% of the critics liked it, 80% of the audience liked it. And I went into this movie, I didn't see it opening night. Didn't see it opening weekend. I didn't go until Tuesday. I went to a matinee with a friend. Gigi does not like horror movies. She didn't want to see this one, so I went with a friend and we went to go see it. And I had lowered expectations. I actually did not think it was going to be that good because I'd heard so many negative things about it, that it wasn't scary, it was too jokey, it was too, whatever. The adult cast was as good as the child cast, all kinds of complaints. So maybe it's because I walked in with lowered expectations, but I actually like the movie quite a bit. I don't think it's quite as good as the first one because the first one has most of the, I guess, the driving action of the book in it. And they're not flashing back and forth as much as they did in the book. So it is kind of weird that they took all the, I guess, kind of the good bits of the book and front-loaded it. But if you watch it as one movie back to back, I think it definitely works. I did like it a lot more than I expected to, and I'm really surprised at the adult cast. I mean, they had a really good cast, but they were really spot on, I think, for the adult versions of their characters. Especially Richie and Eddie, I thought were fantastic. Bill Hader was very, very good, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Ransone, I think, is the guy who played Eddie. They were very good, and it's so weird about Bill, because I remember when I saw the kid who played Bill in the first movie, I kept thinking to myself, like, man, he looks like James McAvoy, kind of. He kind of looks like James McAvoy. I bet they cast James McAvoy to be the adult version of him, and sure enough, they did. So I don't know if they had the adult actors kind of sort of in mind when they cast these kids or what, but it worked. It actually worked out really well. That's my initial reaction. I would say if the first It was an A, this was probably a solid A- or a B+. It's definitely worth seeing if you like the first movie. It's not the disaster that people are making it out to be. It is a little lighter, I think, on the horror than the first one was. I mean, the first one was just, I think, inherently scarier because you're dealing with a crazy clown and kids and anything could happen. This one does have some goofy moments, it does, but I think a lot of that is just the adult actors have really good comedic timing. Again, especially, props to Bill Hader. I think he was great in this movie, and it works. I think it works for the most part. And thankfully, Pennywise is not just a giant spider, stop motion spider at the end. I'm not going to tell you exactly what the final form is, but it's a little bit better than what we saw in the miniseries. So, I mean, the movie's not perfect. I recommend going to see it. A lot of critics, a lot of the pop culture sites have had issues. Now, this is a tough one because the biggest issue before the movie came out was the brutal murder at the beginning of the movie. That is from the book. And it was actually based on a real-life murder that occurred in Maine, where Stephen King is from, that happened right before or during his writing it. And people, I just got into a conversation with some people on Twitter yesterday about this, and people were like, it's brutal, it's horrible that they're killing gay people in the movie, and this is going to possibly lead to more violence against gay people. And look, the book has been out since 1986. That murder actually occurred. I think it was in 1984. It actually occurred, and it's never portrayed in the movie as being a good thing. It's never portrayed in the movie as being a good thing. You're never you're never once sympathetic to the asshats beating up the gay guy. Never once. And, you know, they actually don't even kill him. They beat him up very badly. They dump him in the river. Pennywise finds him. Pennywise is an equal opportunity monster. He will eat anyone. And it just happened to be kind of an easy lunch floating by. Again, this is from the book. This happened in the book. You know, thankfully, some of the elements from the book they cut, including some of the really disturbing and potentially illegal to film scenes from the book they cut. But this wasn't the book. Pennywise eats the dude in the beginning, but Pennywise also eats at least two children. At least two children in the movie as well. And it's actually shown in a lot more graphic. So, you know, I mean, has the climate changed since the book was released? Yeah, it's definitely changed, but it was in the book. It's shown as being a heinous act. It's never condoned. It's never, you know, so I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Now, other issues people have, and now this is where it gets confusing. Okay, so the same people that had an issue with, you know, violence against gay folks in the beginning of the movie are kind of praising but not praising Richie and Eddie in this movie. In this movie, now there was a little bit of subtext in the books, but it was never made explicit. In fact, Stephen King came right out and said, no, I never meant for these characters to be gay. Or, you know, but in this movie, it's very strongly hinted, very, very strongly hinted that at least Richie is gay. I don't know if Eddie feels the same way, but Richie is kind of in the closet and has feelings for Eddie that are never quite reciprocated. And then spoiler, don't have the potential to be reciprocated by the end of the movie. Anyway, so people are sort of like, well, you know, it's not queer enough. It's not gay enough. The characters were actually never written as gay in the book. Even Stephen King confirmed it. You know, here's what Stephen King thought about the change. He said, no, I never did. They asked him if, he was recently asked if he framed Richie's relationship with Eddie as an unrequited love story as it was portrayed in It Chapter 2. And he said, no, I never did. I never did. But again, it's one of those things that's kind of genius because it echoes the beginning and it comes full circle. Yeah, it is kind of interesting how they did that. And again, it wasn't, the way it was done, it was very subtle. It wasn't in your face. And again, this is kind of why I think people were having a problem with it. Because it said that the queer, according to Gizmodo, formerly IO9, and I think IO9 is sort of, as the brand is gone, because it's just sort of like its own little subsection here on Gizmodo. But according to Gizmodo, formerly IO9, It Chapter 2's queer subplot is too subtextual to be scary good. Said It Chapter 2 builds on the idea with some of the more subtle bits of characterization King wove into the novel, revealing that one of the losers has been living in the closet, something that Pennywise taunts them about. So at times, the subplot works as a moderately interesting exploration of how not feeling able to come out can devastate a person's life and literally kill them. But the issue is that ultimately the film doesn't know how to really go for the ideas it's already touching on. The concepts are there, but the execution's not. So yeah, I mean, in the book, it's sort of implied that Eddie possibly might be gay, but I'm trying to remember, it's been a long time since I've read the book. In this film, I don't think Eddie comes across that way, but Richie is definitely in the closet. Again, it's not really in your face. It's just kind of one of those, oh, okay, all right. They're talking about how it's too subtle. It's too subtle. They said in the process of figuring out how to defeat Pennywise, each of the losers embarks on their own quest to confront their fears and recall things about themselves. Richie ends up going back to the arcade to get a token, suggesting that it and perhaps that boy might really have meant something to him, or he could have just liked video games. Who knows? I want to go there. Not about this, but about something else with the arcade. Couple of problems with the arcade scene. Yeah, he might have liked the boy he's playing Street Fighter with. There are a couple of problems, and I was on Twitter about this too. One, Street Fighter 1, you couldn't select any other character other than Ryu and Ken. And they were playing against each other with different characters. So that would have happened. This is 1989. 2, when the losers get their picture taken in the photo booth, in 1989, there's a Mortal Kombat machine right next to the photo booth. Mortal Kombat didn't come out until 1992. So the one thing I'm really furious about with this movie, and this is a very common thing with these period piece movies, is they need to have somebody come in regards to video games and pop culture and be like, did this exist in this year? This kind of happened with Stranger Things too, where when Dustin came home in 1985, 11 had a whole bunch of toys moving on their own, and one of those toys was Ultra Magnus from Transformers. He didn't come out until a year later. So nerds notice these things, man. If you're gonna make a nerd movie, we notice when things aren't supposed to be there. Anyway, yeah, it was very subtle. It was very subtle. So, this is really weird. On one hand, we have the brutal attack on the gay guy at the beginning is terrible. Boycott this movie because it's awful, even though the book has been around since 1986. Don't go watch this movie. It's awful. Oh, look, they've got, okay, this movie's okay, but it's not gay enough. So, I don't know. These are kind of the hot takes the media's had on it. I'm going to tell you that, look, the movie has some really uncomfortable parts in it. The first movie had some really uncomfortable parts in it. It's never glorified. It's never shown as being a good thing. In fact, the attackers are awful, awful people. Pennywise feeds off of fear and violence and evil. So it makes sense to start the movie with his return, having something evil happen. And that was actually the start of the original book. So, again, back to my thoughts on the movie. Overall, I thought it was very good. I really did. And it could be because I had lowered expectations going into it, because I'd heard so many people say, oh, it's not as good as the first one. And no, technically it's not as good as the first one, but it's still good. And if you look at it as two halves of a whole movie, it does work. I mean, there is a little bit of deja vu because it feels almost like beat for beat, kind of the first movie, just we're using adults this time. But that was kind of how the book worked. And I did kind of wonder how that was going to work out when they're like, oh, we're going to put all the kid parts in the first movie and all the adult parts in the second movie. And it was going to feel that way because all those experiences were supposed to echo each other, back and forth across 27 years. And it does seem kind of disjointed, having them having the movie be almost exclusively the adult cast other than flashbacks. So, anyway, my recommendation, yeah, go see it. I think it's worth seeing. If you're not going to see it in theater, at least, pick it up on digital or Blu-ray. If you like the first one, I think you're going to like this one too. That is my opinion. So we're going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. This has been Neon. We'll talk later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.